This is Brent with Lykins Motorsports, and we are looking at a World Products Man of War 302 block for our 363 cubic inch bracket motor. Just a big beefy engine block. 4 1/8 inch bore. This one's already machined, ready to rock and roll. It's been square decked with a BHJ fixture and line honed. And I've already got some Durabond coated cam bearings in it. And I wanted to mock up some stuff before I did a final wash on it. Let me roll this over so you can see what's going on here. 4 bolt caps, even on the front and the back, which requires, in most instances, a different oil pan with a billet rail. It's already been clearanced. Typically, we have to do that on a lot of stroke 302s. It's already been notched, and it has plenty of clearance. I think it's advertised that you can run a 3 1/2 inch stroke in these blocks. I have already thrown some mock-up bearings and the crank in it, and checked out how much clearance we do have to the cylinder skirts. And it is a mile, and I checked counterweight to your oil pump boss clearance, which is very important. So what we're going to do is just point out some different things of the block. When it was jet washed, it did flash up a little bit, and we'll take care of that. It doesn't hurt anything. Some blocks do that. Even when you hit them with the WD and blow them off, it's almost like the composition of different alloys cause that to happen. But just want to point out some things here. If you look in the lifter valley, it is drilled and tapped for a hydraulic roller lifter spider. And there are no oil drain backs in this block. There's a hole here, but it is used for a scavenge port for a dry sump. So you could totally block off the lifter valley, and you could suck from here, so you get 0 oil raining down on your rotating assembly, and you can scavenge out through the lifter valley, which is pretty cool. It is priority main oiling. Here is your main oil gallery, and it is connected to this lifter gallery, but if I look way down in there, it's tapped, so I can block it off right there, which causes the oil to run all the way from the front of the block to the back, lubricating all the mains and the rods, and then it comes up through an offshoot and then oils your lifters. This block uses some of these Moroso oil restrictors. So it screws in through the back of the block into your lifter galleries, and that chokes off the oil if you're running a solid cam. And we're going to choke it off. These have a 60 thousandths orifice in them, which is plenty for a solid roller, and it keeps the oil where it needs to be kept. So if you notice, the block has the normal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 small block Ford pattern. It also has these outboard holes. If you want to run a cylinder head that uses those, I think Profiler makes one, and there may be a couple of others. But that's for extra clamping force if you want to do a boosted application or high nitrous or something like that. Just a real big beefy block. And a great platform for our 363 build. So the plan of action now is I'm going to do just a little bit of grinding on the oil pump hole to put a little bit of a radius at the bottom of it, and then I'm going to wash it again. And then I have kind of a habit of pumping lacquer thinner or mineral spirits through the entire block, and that ensures that any little piece of dust or something that's down inside the oil galleries that a jet wash doesn't get, that will be flushed out. Once it's cleaned and absolutely clean, then I'm going to put a coat of paint on it and put the freeze plugs in and all the plugs, and then we can get on to checking our bearing clearances and checking our piston to wall clearances and things like that. So let's get started. All right, so we got a good wash on our block, and I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but it used to be a 90-degree hole, and I took a round ball mill, not a ball mill, but like a burr, grinder bit, whatever you want to call it, and kind of smooth that, radius that inside. And that's always been one of my pet peeves with Ford engines. But right now we're checking out main bearing clearances, and I've got a set of Male. These are standard clearance coated bearings, and I'm getting ready to check just this first main to see where that will get me. No need to check all 5. The first one will usually tell you whether you need to change bearings or not. So I'm going to calibrate my micrometer since I haven't used it today, and get my bore mic out and check this main bearing clearance. Okay, so our first journal measures 22485. So if I set my bore mic to that, oops, a thou, and with a little bit of taper, 0.2 of taper. That's not going to be enough, obviously. I'd like to be somewhere around 2.5 thousandths. What tends to happen on bracket race motors, guys, they really don't get the water and the oil temps up to spec. So I usually try to allow for a little bit extra clearance for the oil to pass through. But I've got some HXK bearings, so I'm going to swap the bearings out. I expect it to be 2 thousandths, which is still not enough, but I can have a half thou polished out of the journals if I need to. So next plan of action is to swap out these bearings and see where that gets us. All right, so I just punked myself. I looked over here and thought I had a set of HXK bearings, but there's only 2 bearing shells in there. So I do have a set of Federal Mogul 129Ms with extra clearance. So if these are race bearings as well, I'm going to get these torqued down and check these out and see where they get me. It could be that I won't have to polish the crank. The Federal Mogul bearings usually run a little bit bigger, and it could be that I just have to send these out for coating, and we'll be in good shape. I do want to show you how beefy these blocks are. The caps are doweled, and also these bolt washers are stepped, so that locates your bolt and your cap both. These are just really good blocks. All right, let's see what this does to me. Well, I got my hopes up, but it didn't pan out. Sitting at about 2 2000s 4/10 on bearing clearance there. So even if I have these coated, that'll take away a half thou, and I'm right back to polishing. So seems like I'm going to be polishing no matter what. So what I'll do is just I'll order another set of Cleveite bearings and check this out. So that pretty much stops us there, but we can go ahead and check our piston to cylinder clearances. And I also got our rod bearings in. If you remember from the last video, I was not able to find a coated bearing, but I got these. So we'll check the rod bearing clearances as well. So I got all of our pistons measured, and this is the product of modern technology. Look at the different sizes of these pistons. So the smallest one is 4/1/21/3. The biggest one is 4/1/21/5. So 2 10,000ths of an inch difference between all 8 pistons. So I set my mic to the biggest one. Then we've got a bore mic, and this is how you check piston to cylinder wall clearance. So we've got about 3.5 thousandths, and I go through and check all of them. This ensures that machinist didn't do anything. So now that we've checked everything out, we know that our mains are in spec, and we just have to finagle the bearing clearances a little bit. And we know that our cylinders are right. Now I can mask and paint the block and put all the freeze plugs and gallery plugs and all that in there. So it'll make it one step closer to looking like a finished engine. Before I do that though, I think I will go ahead and check rod bearing clearances and with the new bearings, and that'll give me a leg up for when I drop the crank off to have it balanced. So we're on to this. In the last video, we checked clearances with a standard H bearing. We had 2 thousandths. With an X bearing, we had 3. Makes perfect sense. I wanted to be somewhere in the middle, so I ordered these standard bearings. Extra clearance bearings with the coating, because the coating usually takes about a half a thou. And I just checked one of the rods with that, and we were at 2.4. So we're good. Not going to bore you with checking the other 7, but I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll go on to the next step. All right, all of our rod bearing clearances are checked, and I'm pleased with where they've turned out, all around 2.5 thousandths. And now I get to go back and break all these down and label my bearings so they can go back where they need to the next time. A lot of engine building is just kind of monotonous work, but you just got to get it done. So I think after I get these broken down, then I'll get the block masked off and maybe painted tomorrow. And through the magic of the internet, it'll just be a few seconds for you guys. But all that I have left to do on the short block is paint and prep the block and file the rings, and then get the crank to the balancer and get our main journals adjusted and that sort of thing. So not much left to do. All right, we have a painted and prepped block. Use some VHT satin black. I will say I do not care for the size of the freeze plugs on this block. It's a 1 5/8 size freeze plug, but there's about 5 thousandths press fit on the freeze plug. And I wasn't able to use my freeze plug drivers that I usually use. This is what I usually use to drive freeze plugs in. It doesn't make a mark on the freeze plug, but I had to use a hammer and a socket, which I didn't care for, but they're in, and it's done. And got all of our plugs in. Behind this plug right here is another plug. So this is essentially a clean out. It connects these two passages. This is your main oil gallery, and obviously the oil can go up here, but you don't want it to, because you don't want it to start feeding the lifters first. So that is completely blocked off behind it, which makes the oil travel all the way to the rear of the block, and then it can come up through these diagonal passages and then oil your lifter galleries. And I've got the Moroso restrictors in there. They've got a little O-ring seal that goes inside of the gallery and seals it off, and then it's got a 60 thousandths orifice, and it's made into the plug, so it just screws into the back. Got our new oil filter, oil pressure sending unit adapter that most 5-liter blocks use, and just got a really good head start. So tomorrow, I will not bore you with filing piston rings. I will get that done, and then we for sure can get the crank dropped off next week to be balanced, and have the journals adjusted, and we'll be on our way to short block land. So the owner was able to snag a set of AFR 205 Renegade heads, which was luck in and of itself, because they are non-existent in the United States right now. And our cam is on the way, and Moroso oil pan. So we are well on our way to having some major steps in this engine building procedure. All right, guys, that'll be it for this weekend. If you are new to the channel, as they say, ring the bell, subscribe. If you are a current subscriber, thank you very much for watching and for being here. And with everybody, please hit that like button. All right, you guys have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.